Little Ray here from Little Ray's Reptiles, and getting ready for a great March break of education is what you're really known for when it comes to the animals that you have on hand.
Yep.
We had a snapping turtle up here, and now we have, what's her name?
This one, honestly, Jeff, doesn't have a name at this point in time. She's
just got her, that's
she's
why,
new.
right?
She got dropped off. We have a non-profit now called the Backyard Conservation Fund of Canada that's specifically set up to help with the placement of unwanted pet reptiles and amphibians, which is something we've been doing through the zoo for years.
Right.
As part of the new quarantine standards for zoos, we can't be taking pet animals into the zoo and then letting them go out into the public anymore.
Right.
So it's almost like a backdoor way to continue to do it.
So this, when I saw this, I was like, what kind of exotic species of turtle is this?
And this wonderful turtle is a red-ear slider. And for any of the moms and dads out there, the little tiny little turtles that you see in the pet stores and stuff, that your kid's like, Mom, Dad, I want that.
They're just a little bit bigger than a toonie when you get them, right?
And people are like, it's unbelievable. And you hear these myths and misconceptions that if you keep them in a small environment, they don't grow.
This is how big they get?
They get bigger than this. This one in particular was very well cared for 3 years. Keep in mind that they'll pretty much grow the majority of their life. Most of the growing's in their first 15, 20 years. And another factor, if we talk about responsible pet ownership for a second, I mean, when you buy an animal, it's for life. In the case of this turtle, you're looking at a turtle that reasonably, with good care, will live 60 to 80 years. So if little Billy is 8 years old and wants a turtle...
It's his whole life.
Well, if he lives that long, he's got to live to be 88. If the average age is 72, chances are the turtle's going to outlive him, and you're hoping his grandchildren like him.
I shudder to think about what people actually do, because I think it's rare that they turn them over to you.
Well, I would like to think that people aren't like really kind of hurting them and stuff. I tell you what is happening with red-ear sliders. They come from the southern parts of the United States, but you can go to Petrie Island and you can see them at Petrie Island. Now, I'm not telling people out there that because you're seeing them at Petrie Island that you should be letting them go there, because that's messing with the ecosystem with local turtles they're out competing local turtles for food, which messes with the ecosystem. You cannot let them go in the wild. If you do have one, we can take them in.
And that's the responsible way to do it.
But please, you really shouldn't buy them in the first place.
Right, gotcha.
You shouldn't buy them in the first place. They just live too long. And for anybody thinking about getting their child as a pet, please, the first thing you should look at is size of the animal and longevity. Now, this wonderful creature, in getting back to the zoo here for a second, it's just a young one-year-old Cuvier's dwarf caiman, which is a crocodilian, a cousin of alligators and crocodiles, being that, I think one of the feature exhibits at the zoo are big alligators and alligator feedings and stuff. And with March break coming, we're going to be doing these feedings a couple times a day. Shows are happening throughout the day, feeding demonstrations, hands-on. We always have little crocodilians out that people can touch. This little guy's got his mouth open. He's young. He's a tiny little bit nervous, but he really doesn't try to bite. But he's kind of getting used to people handling him, and would he get as big as this table? He won't be as big as a table. Full grown. This is the smallest crocodilian in the world. He'll get about 1.2 to 1.4 meters long. So his father is
2/3 of the table.
Yeah, about from my hand to where you are right now, and his mom is probably only about this big. So he doesn't get huge, but again, for somebody who's listening, go, wow, that'd be a really cool pet. Obviously, not an animal that anybody
See, I wouldn't look at one even at this size and think, wow, that'd be a cool pet. I just wouldn't.
You just wouldn't be like,
I would think this is a cool thing to see at Little Ray's, and that's a good way to do it.
Come check it out. A wonderful animal. All crocodilians around the world are threatened or endangered. Loss of habitat is one of the things that's really affecting these guys globally, but a very cool animal. One last animal. It doesn't matter, how many times we're on. I think once I didn't bring a giant snake, and Kurt was like, Little Ray, why didn't you bring a big snake?
Because you have back issues, maybe? Because that is huge.
This here is Buttercup, and as much as she is
Buttercup,
a big snake, and she's been on here before, she is certainly not full grown. She's about a 3.5, 4-year-old Burmese python.
Really?
I think Jeff, most our animals are people's unwanted pets. We've had Buttercup for just over a year now, and she's a snake that actually came from Kingston. Somebody in Kingston had bought a little snake, liked the idea of it, having a giant snake, but realized very quickly that they just didn't have the space
Right.
and the resources to care for her.
And Buttercup's
that's
very
what we
used to
got her.
people then.
Extremely used to people. So she would have been born in captivity. She's a captive bred snake. She's an albino Burmese python. As much as, you know, albinos do happen in the wild, it's very rare.
And so this would command a great price, yada, yada. This is not a market that we're proud of, is it?
Not the market that we like to advocate for, quite the opposite. And in the wild, if an albino snake is born, they'll never survive. Like this snake as a baby relies on camouflage.
How much does she weigh?
She's probably about 60, 65 pounds.
Really?
I mean, if you put your hands, you can put your hands under her, Jeff, and just get an idea for
look how she moves.
just how
That's
much weight
amazing.
that she actually has in your hands.
The size of this.
And but she's very used to being around people, obviously,
Isn't
and
that amazing?
being handled. So, a
So
wonderful animal.
So go see Buttercup and check out the March break programs at Little Ray's. Are you all booked up? I imagine you're.
Well, for shows like going out into the community and doing educational programs, it's pretty booked up. As for the zoo, though, we're open 10 to 5 every single day, open to the general public, no booking required, shows alternating, hands-on shows, feeding demonstrations happen nonstop throughout the day, highly educational, highly interactive. If you haven't been there, or if you have, it's still going to blow your mind.
Wow.